Biagandi, Naviung to Kapawenge Manu, Na Puganinit Sony Povi, Na Leilani Clark. Kiat she Leilani Clark Yanishe, Tabahanishle, Nakai Klajini Bashachi, Kapawenge Dashache, Nakai Klajini Dashanelli. Greetings, my name's Leilani Clark. I was born and raised here in Tucson, Arizona. By way of my father, I'm African American. By way of my mother's, I'm Santa Clara Pueblo, Kapawenge, and Dene, Navajo, from Water's Edge Clan, Tabaha. This is a poem right now that I want to share in celebration of Indigenous Peoples Day 2020, being celebrated in Tucson, Arizona right now, on a virtual platform, recognizing that we're still able to celebrate, aside from having to do so in a social distancing way, just to keep our loved ones and our families and communities safe. I'm so glad that we're still taking the time to celebrate this reclamation of a day that was once used to idolize a violent colonizer. And now we're really reenacting our histories, our narratives, and our stories. All the words and beautiful gifts that we have as Indigenous people that we can share and celebrate, that we should make more than just one day. So this is a poem right now that is dedicated to all land and water protectors. Right now, being here in Tucson, Arizona, we are in Shukshon. This is Atham Jue, this is Atham land. So really recognizing that. The land and water protectors of the Atham people, Akimel Atham, Kiacher Atham, and Tona Atham, right now they're throwing down right now, trying to prevent a border from desecrating their sacred lands, especially the sacred Quito Baquito Springs. This is for that Atham anti-army. This is also for the land and water protectors who are fighting against the desecration of the Greater Chaco Canyon, threatened by oil and gas development. This is for the land and water protectors who are fighting and spreading awareness to prevent the deadly emission of tritanium waste into the airs over northern Pueblo communities by Los Alamos National Labs. This is going to infect and pollute the air, especially in times of COVID, around all surrounding Pueblo communities, including that of my own community, Kapawenge, Santa Clara Pueblo. This is a poem for them. This is called Song of the Mountains. As I would return from my hometown to an endless sea of asphalt and cars, whom if even were not seen were heard at all hours, I tried to reconnect with inner peace and balance. I admit some days were harder than others. I blew my smoke towards the lights of that city of sin, knowing deep within what were to remain and what would not. I returned, for I missed too deeply the Sonoran desert stars. I missed too deeply the heavy moon hanging like honey-coated silk, not having to bother with all the competition of man-made lights and morals. I breathed deeply in medicine in to calm my heart and to recollect myself from the distractions all around me, to keep in mind the strength of the mountains I would see on my journey to and from. When guided on the silent trails from peaks of green Sonora to the ridges of sandstone Mojave, I always asked the mountains for strength. Please grant me your strength and your ability to stay grounded. Let me borrow it, please, and I promise I will return that energy back to you when my body returns back to this earth. Thank you, beautiful mountains. Thank you for showing us your ways of beauty through your quiet strength and your ability to still stand strong and firm regardless of your pain. Even when they mine you, rip your insides out, left exposed and forgotten on man's quest for what lies underneath your surfaces. Petroleum, uranium, gold, coal, oil, lithium, copper, whatever resources sought at the moment, you are sacrificed to sustain this unsustainable system. Even when I was left humbled by the exit of Autumn land, knowing I was out when Border Patrol was less frequent, Southern Arizona into Mexico subjected without Autumn consent to become height of militarized brown population control, port of entry of exploited work of agricultural US of A, disgracing a people who did not consent to their territory dotted by checkpoints and 24 surveillance of Israeli integrated fixed towers, first dots of measles upon the land, brought in from the gifted blankets of Homeland Security. Red rash of spilled blood, caked dried onto desert floor, shriveled cadavers caked dried of people once seeking dreams and survival. Hundreds of miles of 30-foot steel bollard fencing enforced with concrete mixed with drilled ancient and sacred waters. Quito Baquito Springs at an all-time record low. I would leave barbed wire, virtual steel and concrete borders that showcased Earth Mother's cut skin. And I asked those mountains for both forgiveness and strength. Those mountains still stood tall, heading north even in spite of the Trump regime's plans to refuel 120 million fiscal dollars to resume with the desecration of Yucca Mountain on western Shoshone territory, subjecting her depths to enclose and absorb 79,000 tons of the nation's nuclear waste. Even when the planned reopening of Canyon Mine near all of our water sources of the Colorado River will extract uranium near the Havasupai sacred site of Red Butte, only 6 miles away from the south rim of the Grand Canyon, to be hauled nearly 300 miles, all primarily through Diné Bikéyah, Navajo Nation, to be processed upon land of the Ute Mountain tribal community of southeastern Utah. Even as Diné, Ute, Zuni, and Hopi sacred site Bears Ears and Apache Oak Flats are once again placed on the auction block for oil, gas, and mining industries from pompous executive orders dictated from the beliefs of manifest destiny. Besides all this chaos, beautiful mountains, you stand strong and firm, teaching us how to survive by any means necessary and to continue moving that seed forward, because life is far too precious and our roots far too deep to be removed. You cannot separate the land issues of this country with both the plight and resistance of indigenous peoples native to these lands. Before any sort of foreign countries were even established through conquest, invasion, and separation of newly formed nation-states by walls and surveillance. We are one, we are connected, and what is done to the land is done to us. And done to all of you as well. But we, her first people, feel these desecrated areas of our creation deep within our soul, like a hollow that can never be filled once that drill hits that earth, once those borders divide our cultures and hinder our natural freedom of movement. We are a people recovering from battle-worn trauma, PTSD passed down through bloodlines like little newborn infant brought into this world carrying the weight of heroin addiction. We are both the survivors and casualties of an ongoing war, both silenced and denied, merely labeled civilization and progress, the fruits of first world democracy. In 2020, the American Indian Wars have not yet ended. We are still here. And those who came are still building upon this land, not theirs, building to the point of extinction. Entire plants and species removed from existence for comforts of gated lifestyles and so-called border protection. All of those who are fragile to the elements and who refuse to live within the natural cycles of balance, who only attempted to destroy the connection everyone else had to it, along with their own, so there was nothing left to compare sanity with insanity. Many of us have been forcibly removed. Some of us still remain our ancestral land, but have lost our solid connection to our mother through our song and dance. Words to prayers no longer remembered, beaten out of us. 3 generations back, 2 generations back, 1 generation back. The places of our medicine taken from us, desecrated and destroyed. Leaking pipelines forced through healing waters drained for border drag roads and steel beams. Mountain tops of creation stories removed, blown up, obliterated, and mined, drilled to reach their insides. Seasonal cycles once carried in our songs and carrying our natural food sources changing irreversibly with the rising temperatures of the earth. Physical and virtual walls both criminalizing and creating foreigners out of a people upon their own land. Lands of hard-peaked beauty reduced down to U.S.-sponsored killing fields. And still they build, still they come. Still they rip apart homelands and identities. Still they want more and more and more. Soon Mother will have nothing left to give us, and when that occurs, life as we know it will only remain as a passing afterthought through the winds of time. We know all this, us who are connected to this endangered land. And that's why some of us have fallen to the pressures of such heavy intrinsic knowledge weighing down our spirits and soul. Internal violence and chemical-induced numbness reducing us down to non-existent shadow state and disproportionate rates of suicide. Yet despite all the hardship, many of us are still here. We who have remained, the future dreams of our ancestors, the seeds of their survival, and we continue to fight. We choose to go down fighting, if nothing more, for fighting will bring healing, and reclaiming ourselves is what the fight is all about. The medicine is there. She leads us to her in silent hours. When we take the time to listen to our heart, then we will be welcomed home. brought back to a time when balance and harmony was not just an ideal but a constant way of life, where happiness appeared in many forms, shapes, and colors, ones which could be never bought nor sold. We are still here, battle-born and weary, but we are still here. The living casualties and survivors of an ongoing war, carried through bloodlines, silenced through forgotten tongues, and stolen land. But we will still regain back our medicine, one syllable at a time, through every sacred site honored and liberated once more. The land's liberation is tied to our own. There is no way to separate the two. Thank you all very much.